Looks like we're getting close.
Oiler on staff, do we?
Okay, call this regular session to order Wednesday, May 15th. The time is 7:05. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll open it up for visitor comments.
Good evening. I'm Art Leskowich, citizen here in St. Helens. I spoke before the council several times before, and my concern is probably still quite similar regarding the repurposing of the lagoon to a landfill. Back in February, the city received $500,000 in a grant from the state, and was curious about that scope of work that I had not seen until the previous meeting when the work order was issued to Mall Foster Alongi. And I understand it did not go through a bid process because of activities that the council did back in 2015 or so, streamlining the process. So we didn't have to open it up for bid. I've been continually told, I keep asking for options other than a lagoon. I'm told by members of the council that they're still considering options. But when I read the scope of work, it doesn't seem to indicate that. So I guess my first question, it's not rhetorical, but who did write the scope of work? Who produced the scope of work? Can anybody answer that?
Done in concert with DEQ as part of their solid waste program, and our consultant on the project, Mall Foster, was assisted with that.
DEQ wrote the scope of work?
So DEQ was written in an effort to get to that preliminary approval piece that the DEQ has been commented on our draft scope of work to see if that had the information.
So did somebody in the city write the scope of work?
Our contractors helps.
The contractor.
And our city attorney, yeah.
And the city attorney, okay.
Yeah.
And again, it's not to consider options, it's to cover the necessary efforts for progress on the pathway towards conditional permit approval from Oregon DEQ, for the conversion of the St. Helens wastewater treatment lagoon to receive sediment, soil, water, and treatment sludge. It's going to be a non-municipal waste facility. So we are no longer considering options, I'm assuming. We're straightforward on that path to converting it into a lagoon. One of the shortcomings, several of the shortcomings that I see in the statement of work, sort of not surprising, it doesn't really take into a lot of the issues of safety and in particular water quality. It does at standard permitting criteria. You're going to look at wells within a mile of the project. Fails to address our drinking water intake, which is about 1.5 miles downstream into surface water. That's completely not considered. And I thought it was interesting that our water quality report came out just this last week. We had some hits for chloroform there. I'm not sure where you would suggest the chloroform comes from, but our wastewater treatment plant's permit, which is now expired for about 10.5 years, allows us to discharge about 4.75 pounds of chloroform on a daily basis, average. It can also come from chlorination of our drinking water, which I understand we have problems with our drinking water plant. The tank leaks. I guess now, for the third time, repairs are needed.
I think there's a difference between the treatment plant and the reservoir. Yeah.
The reservoir, I'm sorry, thank you. So we can't keep our reservoir for drinking water from leaking, but yet we're going to proceed with this plan to line this wastewater treatment plant lagoon and expect that that's going to protect our drinking water. So again, what I'm going to...
On the reservoir was actually it's a contractor because I'm familiar with this part of it. And I'm not familiar with 2015.
Yeah, let me finish. I'm not too interested in spending a lot of time here this evening. I'll be coming back on a pretty much regular basis
Good.
and sharing some information with you, continuing to ask the questions, ask the hard questions.
Yep.
Because I'm not getting answers. Actually, I'm getting a lot of runaround. I've been told by more than one person in the community that I should stop asking questions because the city needs the money. And in my opinion, it's all about the money. So there's no competition. There's no outside bringing in sediments from the Portland Superfund site to fund other programs here. So the lagoon needs to be cleaned up. We've had these discussions before, but my problem is there's no peer review. There's no competition. There's no engineers, geologists, industrial hygienists that are looking at this outside the city or your chosen consultant. So when I observe other meetings, other groups in the city, we have a committee for the planning department. We have committees with public on the budgeting program, the Recs and Parks. Even our library has 6 to 9 citizens on a committee. And I've asked this previously. No follow-up on it. There's no committee. There's no group of citizens. There's no review panel associated with any of the environmental or engineering activities that go on here. So, that being said, I will be recruiting, asking for public input, looking for volunteers from those professions and more, from the community, to get the word out and sort of confirm. I sometimes think I'm a little bit crazy if I'm one of the few people that are questioning what's going on here. So I look forward to seeing you in the past. I hope to have very open and sharing of materials. That has not happened. So if we got to go the public records request, we'll do that, or any number of options that I find that is available to us. So that's my 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
I just want to clear up for the record that the holding tank is clear up Pittsburgh Road that is leaking, and it's a contractor that has failed to perform their duties, and we've actually had to go against their bond to get it fixed. Correct, Sue?
Yes, so far. And it's also, just to make it clear, that's only one of 5 reservoirs that we have.
Okay, and then our $11 million water filtration system's working just perfectly fine.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
There's no issues
I just
there.
want to make sure because it comes in and it sounds like the truth, and if we don't correct it, it leaves as the truth.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
yep.
One of the things that the proposed survey does allow, and this goes to variations of what you can do, some of the test bores along the river basically will allow us to figure out how to put loading and unloading equipment along the river. The cores in the bluff, and I think with Sue Nelson's help, you could run your topographical map, since it's pretty much all stone, and figure how many 100,000 cubic yards of hard rock we have, basalt. We could turn that whole area into a mine using either railroads or the barge loading as a money maker, while leveling the ground as an industrial area, useful industrial area. That allows us to leave the lagoon where it is without changing it, and allows us to use the sewer treatment plant where it is. So we could use this survey as basically how to begin to mine and turn a mine into an industrial site. as well as building loading and unloading facilities on the river, leaving the lagoon where it is and leaving the sewer treatment plant where it is. As I reported earlier today, the fact that we have water coming between the soil and the basalt by the dam, we possibly have a problem of that dam collapsing in some period of time. And time I'm using here is geology type time. Could be 5, 10, 20 years or whatever, but it's definitely a area where ground is moving because of water, and could be rainwater over a fairly large area. So I think we need to study the problem of bringing in solid waste, since my personal opinion is that main levy is in danger, as we just saw with the collapse or the cave-in of Plymouth Street. I would be very worried about the stability of that lagoon in that whole area because of the underground water from the face of the basalt. But this cores will allow us to use the basalt as a mine as an income. So it's kind of useful. I really do not like the long-term probability or possibility of bringing in toxic waste because of some of the hydraulics.
Okay, so I just would like to state that this is necessary, that we're having Mal Foster do this work. It is completely necessary in order to see the possibilities of whatever we decide to do down there. And we actually have issues down there right now that we have to address. And to say that we are going alone is false. That I encourage people to continue to show up, give us the hard questions. We're not quite ready for it, but we are on our way because we'll have that information from these Mal Foster when we get it, the scope of work. So that being said, I encourage you to continue to show up and ask those questions. There's no secret agenda of this council moving forward. It's pretty much been wide open the whole time. I just don't agree with conspiracy theories like that. I just don't. 2015, I can't speak on that. I can't speak on the contract with the attorney and Mal Foster. So I don't even know if that was true.
I can,
Yeah.
and it was just as wide open then as it is now.
Okay. All right. Yep. That's all I was wanting to. I couldn't speak on that behalf, so I just wanted to ask. Okay. So other visitor comments.
Shauna Harrison, St. Helens. I first and foremost would like to say I'm grateful you guys are continuing to talk about affordable housing. I would like to come on the record in regards to being told that I'm in charge of housing price inflation. That was told to me at the last council. And I do want to give you guys a little bit of numbers, and I would like to talk uninterrupted. The property problem we're having right now is affordability, as you guys can see with the below means average that people are getting here. Anything under $300,000, unfortunately, is getting multiple offers. So when we have a basic ranch home for $250,000, which is the most sought after home in our market, unfortunately, they get pushed up. So the neighbor down the street wants to sell the other house for $270,000 because of supply and demand. You guys voted for Emerald Meadows with the guise of affordable housing. You guys said that was the reason why we were going to do R5 zoning. Those houses are sitting at $350,000. They're not moving, actually. They're not selling, and I'm sure Richmond Homes is a little bit disappointed to see their profit possibly going down the margins, especially as product is getting more expensive due to tariffs and the lack of interest in those homes. So with that being said, I've been down here consistently, not because I have nothing else better to do. It's because I care about livability. I see the livability of our community eroding. Many of you guys live here, maybe some of you don't, but either way, you guys are all supposed to be good stewards for that. Plymouth Road is eroding. It's eroding. That's what your problem is down there. It doesn't take a geologist to figure it out. It's certainly not rocket science. And if you get the proper people to give you a scope of work, aside from just one firm with one scope of work in mind, you may get a couple different other options. You guys have not got any other options. You guys have continued just to get your options through Foster Mall, who also has never done anything. Nobody's ever done anything like this that anybody can even attest to in regards to taking sediments of that degree and bringing them into a water site right next to a town. And also those, that's the only thing that's been even talked about. And once we turn that lagoon, which is not under DEQ, as you guys all know, you guys spend plenty of money for them. DEQ has all their own different kinds of limitations in regards to their regulations, in regards to what this site is zoned, just like ours. So if you guys are going to take the lagoon, now you're going to turn it into a landfill. And now that's something different. And with the proximity and the disparity of the integrity of that whole hillside and that whole area down there, I don't know how in good conscience you guys can all sit up here and not wonder, should we ask a couple little more questions? Should we see a little bit more? I realize the feasibility study is in regards to what it can take. But you guys have decided what you're going to fill that thing with. You guys have worked very hard at that. You have. It's okay. But there are other options. There are other options, and there's a scope of different things you could do besides even turning it into a landfill in regards to seeing how you guys could treat that body of liquid down there. So I really implore you guys to, once the feasibility study is done, to really take some consideration to the integrity, especially since you want to build out your waterfront down here, and to what something of that caliber is going to do that nobody's been familiar with. Nobody can tell you. Nobody's done it. Nobody's done it. If you found somebody that's done it, please send it my way because I'd love to research a little bit more about it. Thank you.
So just to say they have done it before, and there's also very new ways of doing it. And we have talked about several different possibilities. We've been talking about this for years. Way before we started bringing it up to the public, and we talked about all different kinds of options. So we have done that.
You've decided single-handedly this is the option.
Not until we get all the information. We don't know.
Okay, other visitor comments. Okay. Sue, let's do a proclamation here.
Sure, thank you.
Yep.
May 19th through the 25th, 2019, National Public Works Week. Whereas public works infrastructure, facilities, and services are of vital importance to sustainable communities and to the health, safety, and well-being of the people of St. Helens, Oregon, and whereas public works services provided in our communities are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas these facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees of state and local government and the private sector. And whereas these individuals plan, design, build, operate, and maintain the transportation, water supply, water treatment, wastewater treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, structures, and facilities, and deliver transit and fleet services which are essential to to serve our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for our citizens and civic leaders to gain knowledge and maintain a progressive interest and understanding of public works and public works programs in their communities. And whereas the year 2019 marks the 59th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association.
Okay, now therefore, I, Rick Scholl, Mayor of St. Helens, call upon all citizens to be thankful for the public work services provided to this community and to recognize the substantial contributions of our public works personnel make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life, and do hereby proclaim May 19th through 25th, 2019 as National Public Works Week in the city of St. Helens. Yep. Here, here. Okay. And we'll look forward to that breakfast on Friday. Okay.
Not this Friday.
Not
24th.
Yes. Okay. So, deliberations on annexation of 2225 Gable Road.
My feeling is that listening to staff's report is that that area, especially with the zoning, dovetails into a perfect pattern, a good pattern, a functional pattern. I think I'm very much in support of the staff and the staff report because of that reason.
I support the planning commission and staff's recommendation to approve the annexation.
Okay. Councilor Locke?
I'm good.
Councilor Topaz?
Very much so.
Okay. Well,
We make a motion.
yeah, we should make a motion to be.
So the easy motion is just as recommended per the staff report.
Yes.
As recommended by staff.
Sorry.
I take this as recommended by staff, this annexation.
It's a motion to approve, right?
Yep. Motion.
Seconded.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve annexation as recommended by staff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approve and authorize for signature. A, extension of community service agreement with Columbia Humane Society for community service workers. B, quit claim deed to extinguish easement located at 35601 Valley View Drive. C, 2019 fund exchange agreement with Oregon Department of Transportation for various projects. D, / agreement with Edwin Gunn, DBA Gundola Inc. And E, contract payments.
Move we approve and authorize for signature items A through E as read.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve A through E as read. All in favor?
Aye.
Could I have
Opposed?
Discussion?
Discussion, yes.
I just want to question what is the agreement on D / agreement with Edwin Gunn, DPA Gundola? Do we have that information?
Yeah, I can comment on that. That's in our last logging project, the contractor left behind a lot of material. He was actually penalized for that, and then this contractor wanted to bid and come in and clean that mess up.
Okay.
And basically salvage a little value out of it.
Good, I get it.
And it's
Thank
being
you.
managed by our forester, so it's all, we've had a striking number of people wanting to go up and cut firewood, so.
Yeah, thanks for
But,
clarifying.
but we're gonna
Appreciate it.
get some value out of that.
Sorry to interrupt,
Good.
but I wanted.
No,
to know what
that
all about.
was good. Okay, a motion's been made and seconded to approve A through E as read. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Consent agenda for approval. A, council work session, executive session, public forum, and regular session minutes dated April 3rd and 17th, 2019. B, accounts payable bill list.
Move we approve consent agenda 7A and B.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve consent agenda A and B. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So what do I have to report? Let's see. What do I got? Well, I think it was a good talk in our urban renewal earlier, just a little bit about economic development and who is the main driver of economic development in our area. And first and foremost, it's support. And then CSET would be a little ways behind that. And the city does own some industrial property that we are moving forward on, but it's a very slow process when you're dealing with wetlands and Department of State lands. Is that correct, Jacob? Is that a good way of putting it?
Since Jenny and I are here, you know, we can give a full planning department report, and we'll talk about that when we get to that point.
Okay. So, yeah, and then again, we are just starting to learn a lot ourselves as far as the consultants are concerned with Lagoon. I'll touch on it one more time because we have more public testimony, and I just felt it was vital that I didn't get a tit for tat there. And but what I can say is that yes, DEQ will be around this. The state of Oregon will be around this. The Army Corps of Engineers will be around this. This is not something that the city is trying to, and it's not just for revenue. For crying out loud, we gotta see it potentially has the potential to make a lot of revenue, but we need to see what we can do with that property down there, and this is how we're getting there. So yes, a lot of different agencies will be behind this, and you're going to be more than welcome when we have the answers. We will give them to you, and you can even ask the officials. It will not just be the consultants alone that we hire. It will be everybody. It's a team project, and we answer to our citizens, and we care about this community as much as other citizens do. It does not pay up here, but I love being able to be of service to my community. So, okay, let's go with Council President Morton.
Well stated, Mayor. And one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that it is somewhat about revenue on the lagoon. At some time, and I don't know when, but the citizens of St. Helens will have to clean that lagoon up. And from what our consultants say, it's going to be $20 to $50 million to do that. How we go about doing that is the question. We can put it off to, you know, for your kids or your grandkids, and we could do nothing. And actually doing nothing would be extremely easy. But the council is taking that lagoon on to clean it up. It's someone else's mess. Someone else left it behind. Mm-hmm. And we have to clean it up, or we're dedicated to clean it up. And so I welcome testimonies from the public and resources, as many resources as we possibly can get to help us do that. So I welcome people to come forward and give us options and give us ideas of how to go about doing that. We're trying the best we can with consultants that we have become extremely well recommended, and to, pardon me?
Councilor Morton? Councilor Morton?
No, many consultants.
Councilor Morton, can I just chime in just for a second? Because when you were talking, it brought a revelation. I don't want to lose it.
Go ahead.
Okay?
Yeah.
No.
No, go.
Well, you bring up a good point. Do we want to pass this on to our kids? What we're finding is we actually, and you need to hear this, we actually have some cleanup in our own area. The old boys didn't know no better. They were spraying stuff at Armstrong. We have the pool yard. We have some stuff around our mill. Should we just leave it? Even our lagoon. Now, wait a minute. It's our turn to talk. You had your 5 minutes. This is our reports. And I politely asked Councilor Morton to chime in on his. And I'm stating that this not for you. I'm stating this more for the citizens out there because you're upset no matter what I say. I want the citizens as a whole to hear this, that the old boys did not know no better, and they didn't treat our properties very well. And we have some cleanup issues to do locally here as well, okay? So that was a very good point that you brought up, and I just wanted to chime in on that. So now can you report?
So anyway, we have listened to a variety of consultants early on. Mal Foster took this on, and we contracted with them for various things. They are you are right, they are our only source at this point who we're working with. So there will be others. There has to be others. And can you give us some names of consultants that will help us? I'm asking you to help us out. Can you? Good. Okay, we'll look forward to possibly getting those names and maybe listening to some introductions of what those consultants are all about. So I appreciate that. Anyway, I just wanted to comment on that if we do nothing, it's going to be pretty easy. We could just sit here and kind of work with other things. But we choose to go forward and try to clean that mess up. Okay, that's my report.
Can I go ahead and piggyback since we're there?
Well, you can go ahead and do your report, Councilor Locke.
Yeah, there's a lot of decisions there, and this all started from making the first decision to purchase the property on the riverfront. We didn't have to do that. We could have just let it sit there, but we wanted it to be something special for the city. So the first thing we looked at is what's next door to this prime riverfront property, a 45-acre stinky lagoon. What does that do to our prime riverfront property? I'm not buying there. So there's been a lot. You know, we spent hours and hours talking about this, all the options and different things and whatnot. We're trying to come up with the best solution. We don't know yet because we still have answers that we need, but we're trying to come up with the best solution, not only for the far future, but the near future, because as long as that lagoon's sitting there, it's a problem. So anyway, if you have help, bring it on. The only thing, we were talking about a assembly for the recreational fee at the high school.
We're talking about a forum. Yeah, I don't care. Pick a date.
What I was getting at was that would be an excellent opportunity for Ginny. If Ginny can't make it, I will make it, and we need to give a shout out to the high school for maybe recruiting some for our youth council and whatnot, because we've been talking about doing that, but it's never come. We've never had the opportunity to do that. So if we can let one of us know and maybe be part of the assembly, whatever. That's all I got.
Okay, Councilor Carlson.
This is a tough act to follow. This is not what my report was about, but it kind of put us on this channel. There are lots of options for that land over there. I don't agree with some of the ones that are preferred right now, and so that's why I'm just listening, because I concur with a lot of citizenry that doesn't want our community's livability to go downhill. I want to keep the wonderful life, the reason why we live here. And I don't want to make decisions that counter that goal. And so far, I haven't had enough of my questions answered for me to say this is a good idea. It's like, it does take a vote, and nothing has been decided. Because it has to be decided in a public meeting, and no vote has been taken. All we voted to is to get more information. That's all we voted to do. And it's sad that a meeting gets derailed like this when so many good things are happening in our community, so many good works are going on. I was very, this last Saturday, came down here to go to or Friday night to go to the Mother's Day market, the night market, and couldn't find a parking place because there were shows at the Children's Theater, and there were shows at the theater, the movie house that got the grant, and every business was open, and there were people crossing the street. Like, there were people, like, at every single crosswalk crossing the street, shopping, going to dinner. And it was like, what a wonderful experience. In the whole 20 years I've lived here, I've never experienced that outside of an event. This was just a Friday night in our community, and I took pictures of it and sent it to our event person and said, I found no parking. It's like, and it's not because we sponsored an event. There was just businesses and people doing great stuff. It's unfortunate that one little personal pet project derails good things that are happening as store vacancies are getting filled up. People are doing business in our community. People are getting creative in our community to make small businesses happen. So I just, for all those that are working so hard to put ideas together and put their livelihood on the line to make a business in this community, to make this community a better place, I just say thank you. And, if there's ways that the city can help you, I hope that people would encourage them to, contact our building inspector, contact our planning department, and, give them the heads up and, get your preliminary conversation so you know what you're doing with your business, and make the city a partner in doing better things for our community, because that's what we really are here to do, is to serve our community. So that's it.
Thank you. Councilor Topaz?
I've got two things, and both actually for Sue Nelson, is that you need for your agenda. I really wonder why we're having so many problems with the leaks in that reservoir. I mean, this should have been a slam dunk as far as repair. We really need to look at that. The other thing is the two levels of how much basalt we have over in the lagoon. One is the level from 3 foot above the present water level to whatever we can get out of the property. And the next is 25 feet below the mean water level. If we drain the whole lagoon and turn that whole thing into a marina, how much could we add to it? And if we do that, obviously, we've got to clean the marina out and clean the rest of the rock out. I just need a number as volume, and we know what the rock prices are, so we could get what kind of income we could get from mining rock. Thank you.
Okay.
I've got a bit of an answer for Mr. Topaz's remarks, is that when Boise left the property and sold the property to the city for the $3 million and the lease of Cascade Tissue, minus the lease price, they estimated that the question was asked to them, what would it cost to clean up the lagoon? And Rich Garver, seems to me that right off the get-go, he said $20 to $40 million. So, to make that a boat basin, where are you going to come up with $20 to $40 million?
The rock that I just dug out of the rest of the place.
But where are you going to ship all of that stuff, and how are you going to do it?
Shipping's easy. We've got both a railroad down there, and we've got the ability to load it on barges. There are a lot of people needing rock and building material. So I just need to know how many cubic yards of stuff down there and see what the market price is.
But that's a whole issue that our citizens are upset about, is handling toxic material. And from what I understand, that material in that lagoon is just as bad, if not worse, than any material in the Columbia River or the Willamette River.
The rock is not the lagoon. I'm talking only about the rock, the basalt. The lagoon and the toxic waste there is definitely a problem. I'm just talking about mining the rock.
I'll tell you what, if that rock is worth $60 million, because if it's $40 million, it costs you $20 to get it out of the ground and crush it up. If there's that kind of money, I think we go into the rock business. Sorry, Scott Parker. I'm sorry, Knife River. Sorry, all you guys. But I think we just start going to the rock business. We got a ton of rock on it. Cascade.
Yeah. Oh, the question is how much rock do we have, and have somebody do it for us.
If we can do it that fast and that quick, we've got a lot of money there.
That's why we got to know how much we have.
Steve, so we might cover cleaning the lagoon. I doubt it, because I think we're probably looking at 100 million, tell you the truth. But then, if we clean it up, we still have to build another facility. So now you got another 50 to 60 million on top of that.
We've got to build the other facility anyway. If it gets to be 100 million, I think Uncle Sam would be real interested in not letting it go down the Columbia River. I think our requirements for where we ask for money change drastically, and that may be what we have to do, is go to a super fund and I don't, without having samples of what's underneath the lagoon and underneath the liner that the mills left there for the last 100 years, it's really a danger. And until we find out what it actually is, keep your fingers crossed. I mean, that's, and the trouble with much of that is what was put in there could be generating stuff that's even worse because of the time and the chemistry that could happen. It's not a trivial problem. And I think with the sewage treatment plant, I think with the new requirements of how you have to treat sewage, I think we're going to get stuck with having to build a new treatment plant anyway. And that we may have to, again, go to the federal government. Which, it's not a nice problem. No doubt about it.
Okay. Staff reports. Department reports. Excuse me. Chief Greenway.
Nothing further report, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Margaret? Oh, no. Sorry. You were behind her. I didn't see you. Yeah, she did. She did disappear.
I just had a couple of quick things. One, just to comment on the reservoir. I totally agree that it should be taken care of. The contractor, the membrane material itself is fine. The application is what failed. And so that is what we're moving towards having the contractor remedy. I also wanted to mention, based on some previous comments, the dike and the concern there. You probably don't all know, but about every other year we have the whole entire dike surveyed, and it hasn't budged in at least 25 years. I know that it was surveyed for several years before I started working here, and that's been 18 and a half years ago. So we don't have any problem with movement of the dike or erosion of the dike or anything like that. When there's minor issues with we get some trees that have invasive roots, those are taken care of. So we don't have any issues with that, and we have proof of the fact that it's not eroding, it's not moving, and neither is the roadway along there. So I don't think that that's any danger, any imminent danger to the citizens or to the community or to the river. And then also just as it was mentioned earlier, National Public Works Week next week, and we celebrate with the breakfast down at our Public Works Department. So again, I want to invite all the council and staff to join us down there. Hopefully we'll have a good breakfast for you.
If Jacob shows up, there's not going to be a lot left.
I'm showing up early.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
All right. Margaret. Okay. Jacob.
All right, so you want planning department report?
Yep.
All right, this is dedicated to Chief Greenway. So tonight's report, so in planning, we can break things down into three categories: current planning, review of stuff going on, development proposals, long-range planning, like your parks master plan, transportation plan, and then projects, which can be all sorts of things. On the long-range planning front, we have the Riverfront Connector. We've been talking about that for some time. Thankfully, we're getting to the end. We had the public meeting with the Planning Commission last night. You know, they've had several workshops on it, so that was super easy. And it's going to go before you pretty soon. I can't remember when, but pretty soon. So that's being wrapped up. I'm very thankful for that. The other thing that we have in the long-range planning front is our housing needs analysis. We've had all of our public meetings. We just need to get the final product from the consultants, and then we'll go through the adoption process there. And then later on, we'll work on housing policies. Right now, we're guessing next year. So that's the long-range planning front. Current planning, I listed a bunch of stuff that I could think of out of the top of my head, and I'll just kind of go over them briefly. Elk Ridge Phase 6, we talked about that a little bit. That's the subdivision on Hankey Road. It's done. Construction is done. The only thing that's holding me up from coming to the council asking for the mayor's signature on the plat is the CC&R document. And right now, because you have the existing homeowners association, and they they don't want to sign it until they know what liabilities they have with DEQ, because you have some landfill lands up there. And I know they're going to meet with DEQ on the 20th to understand that. And I am not going to bring it to the council until I know that document's final, because that's one of our conditions. So that should be soon. That's running its course. Of course, you have the Legacy building. That was a good project. Good design professionals working on that, and I don't know if it has its complete final, but I'm done looking at it. Isn't the public improvements done, Sue? Did they finish that?
Yeah, everything's done. They just need to provide a bond, and that's all we're waiting for.
So that's a good project. I mean, if you look at the Violet's Villa at the end of its life, and you look at what that site's looking like now, I mean, it's night and day. So that project is.
It grew. It's big.
Yeah,
It's big.
It grew up, didn't it? But you don't have the affordable housing you did when people were living in the bushes there. So that's Legacy. Of course, you have the apartments behind it. You've seen some grading work. There's building permits running through the system right now, and I imagine they'll start breaking ground on buildings fairly soon. And this is something, it's a big project, like I said earlier, so we're going to be dealing with that for some time now. The middle school and the CCEC was open. The middle school keeps plugging along, so I haven't heard any updates lately, but they're still building it, and I think they want to put in the frontage improvements, all the street improvements this summer when school's out. And so that's another place that'll be night and day from what it looked like before. Emerald Meadows, you're familiar with that subdivision. Of course, it's finished. And Richmond American, who owns about half of the lots, they didn't purchase all of them. They have some permits coming through. Along Old Portland Road, across from Corbett Park, there's some smaller projects happening. There's the Storage Pal Storage Place. They purchased an adjacent property recently, and they're going to expand that. And then there's also an iron forge business that they have their approvals. They're just working on all the, planned stuff. And so they're plugging along. They have their places in Portland, and I think they just want their own place and a little more room and a closer commute. I believe they live in Scappoose. Isn't that right? Is that what they told us? We have a lot of conversations with people, so the details kind of get mixed up. Greystone Estates, that's the subdivision by Columbia Commons, the giant mountain of dirt. They got into some hot water with DEQ, but I think that's all kind of resolved, at least as far as commencing work. They, DEQ fined them pretty heavily, and they'll work on that separately. But that's not our issue. We did want some things taken care of before we told DEQ, they were okay to continue, but that's been resolved. And so and in fact, I communicated with their design people on some details, and so that's still running. It's still in some of the design phase, but it's running its course. Hannah Place, this is a small subdivision, I think 9 lots along, well, it's up in the Holton area on one of the side streets that goes up to the middle school, and that's going to be a row housing subdivision or attached single-family dwellings. And I know that they're working on their civil stuff currently. We have the Bailey subdivision. That's moving. They're constructing their facilities currently. You may have seen some activity at the end of North 8th and 9th Street behind the city shops. They're doing some preparatory work for what we expect to be a subdivision there. But it's a little early to call it a subdivision because we don't have an application for that yet. The Church of the Nazarene on Gable Road. I haven't driven by there lately. I don't know if they're building, but they do have a small expansion. Pelham Cutting on Milton Way. They have some permits in to resolve some issues over the years. In Holton area, the famous Holton Hole, that depression by soot busters. There's a veterinarian who's going to build a building there, and their civil plans have been approved, and their building permit will be submitted very soon. In fact, we had a conversation with them today about some details, which will hopefully make that process smoother. So it's really cool to see investment off the highway in some of our commercial areas.
And Jacob, we actually have a pre-construction meeting with them on Friday for the public improvements, the storm drain and
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, good. So that's an exciting one to see, and that veterinarian is the one in the corner of Furlock Park and US 30, and so when they move out, then okay, well, what's going to happen at that corner? I know there has been interest, and it's a highway corner, so that could spur development on that corner.
And we had the people come to us with the adjacent property behind it, remember?
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard from them in a while. My guess is that.
But we approved that, right?
You approved a zone change.
Yes.
Because they talked about putting in a car wash or something, and I think their challenge was the sewer line. My guess is they're waiting to see what happens on that corner, because if that development results in some infrastructure, then it's
go time.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a lot of partitions. What we're seeing a lot of is we have our standard lots on this side of town, standard 5,800 square foot lot, and we're seeing a lot of people take those and divide them in half for row housing. A lot of the neighbors aren't happy because they're seeing that change, but it's interesting how the market is driving that type of use. We saw it before the recession, and then during the recession and after, there was zero interest in that kind of development. It's really interesting to see now that things are booming again, how that interest is renewed. There's probably other things on the current planning front I'm forgetting, but those are the things that I could think of just sitting here. Projects. Of course, Jenny has the grants she's been working on. I know there's the build grant and the wayfinding signs, and there's probably other things I don't remember, and she can talk about those if she wants when I'm done here. The St. Helens Industrial Park wetland delineation. So our wetland consultant has the report to submit to Oregon Division of State Lands and the Army Corps of Engineers. I think in one of my emails are those documents for signature so they can be signed. Haven't caught up to all of them. And in that report, so there's a lot more wetlands than we thought, including where Rick was hoping to excavate some rock. And the one thing that we don't know is if those are jurisdictional wetlands, meaning does the DSL or Army Corps care? It's possible that they don't care, then there's no bureaucracy in impacting those wetlands. But right now it's unknown. But that is moving, and we have maps and stuff already, though those are subject to change given review by those agencies. The Millard Road property. So last year, if you recall, we had the public forum. I think that was in May. And then Jenny got some feedback from the Parks Commission. And in July and August of last year, we tried to get impact and input from the Planning Commission, but their agendas were just too full. And when it's 10 o'clock at night, we're done. We don't want to talk about it. And then the housing needs analysis came up, and we're like, God, we don't want to have egg on our face. We got to go through this analysis, understand the findings before we proceed. Of course, we have those now, So we were able to talk with the Planning Commission last night. And Jenny and I have kind of been talking about a game plan on that. And I think that's probably something we'll make an agenda item for the council to discuss, since we finally have an update on that. And then, of course, Jacobs Mountain, famously called the bluff that we purchased, the one that was supposed to be mined, and there was all that saga. We haven't forgot about vacating rights of way and cleaning up property lines. It's just, it's on the queue. I think that's all I can think of. Jenny, do you have anything to add?
Give us your top,
Step on up.
ones.
So May 1st, I just sent out reminders to eligible property owners within our historic district. We have a matching historic preservation grant open. So they are eligible for $11,500 through the city's facade improvement program. So if you know of anyone who's in the historic district, I can check to see if they're eligible. So that's exciting. The Veterans Memorial grant, I'd like to update everyone on that. So right now, if you've visited the site, there's a covered shelter, which is, we've gotten a lot of compliments on. I'm really happy with the way it looks, but there is no wall yet. So in order to meet our grant requirements, we've got to get a wall up by the end of June. Otherwise, we forfeit our grant funds. The issue is with sourcing some of the granite. So we have 2 slabs, which is enough to build about a third of the wall. So we're on track to get that up by June. So if you go back late June, you'll see a fairly large wall with 2 slabs. There won't be a header yet, but once we get that granite in, we'll finish the wall. Our goal is to just not.
The granite's not available.
Yeah, it's so apparently their supplier is in China, and there's a lot of issues with the tariff conversations, and they also increased the price on us unexpectedly. So it's just been a nightmare. But we have to use them because we've already deposited on those 2, and we're just kind of stuck in this waiting phase. The wayfinding project, I just wanted to quickly update. So the 3 signs for vehicles were installed. They're not quite done. There's also about 20 more signs in fabrication. And those are the bike ped scale signs. So that was a $75,000 grant through Travel Oregon. We're matching those funds. We also closed out the Great Cliffs project. We're in process of closing that out. We've spent all the money there, so hopefully we'll be getting that money soon. And then this is the last one. This is the most exciting one, I think. In June, John and I are going down to Salem to present before the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department board. And we're asking, I can't remember the exact amount because I'm being... I didn't know I was going to be doing this, but it's about $350,000, if I remember correct, for 1 tennis court, a flex court, pedestrian improvements, parking improvements in Campbell Park, and stormwater improvements. So all of that will be funded by a state grant that will match. It's competitive, so that's why they're having us do this presentation. We had to do a presentation similar to this for the Gray Cliffs restroom project, and so I have experience with it. It's a different board, but I will be doing a run through with staff, and I can invite council if they want to see what that presentation looks like. It's always good to do a few run throughs. So yeah, and if you've never read my department reports, they're really exciting to write because I love working on all the projects. So it's just an email from me with like a ton of grant projects, and that's the feel good stuff that you always mention. I feel like I'm constantly feeling like I'm working on really inspiring projects. So it's a bummer to only hear the negative stuff in these meetings, but there's a lot going on.
The council has talked about having some kind of rotation that would pull you, and like alternatively, like maybe like the first of the month, like 1 month that would be Jacob and the next month that would be you.
Yeah.
So we would kind of keep up on those. Like
Sure.
not every meeting, but like kind of take turns, to
Yeah.
where like the first of 1st of June, it might be Jacob. The 1st of July, it might be you. And the 1st of Jacob, you know, just so
Yeah.
we would, because planning doesn't change like boom, 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 but like every 60 days, there might be worthwhile of an update.
Yeah.
I know Councilor Morton's talked about it a bunch of times. And I think the citizens need to stay abreast of what we're working on because not everything makes the paper, not everything.
Right. A lot of
We're
the stuff's
driving by
behind,
like,
yeah.
Oh, they're finally building there.
Right. And that's been in the works for 3 years. Like there's been a lot of behind the scenes with that. Or yeah, like the restroom, it took multiple times to get, you know, years of working on the grant and then doing the presentation and then finally it getting installed. But yeah, I'm happy to do whatever's requested.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it's not necessarily every single time, and I recognize you and Jacob has a busy schedule and long to-do list. But
Yeah.
just the check-in, and it's nice for the council to have
Yeah, there's
have
no
the story straight from your mouth is in more details because inevitably I will tell them what you've told me, and then they'll have a question.
Mhm.
So, and
Yeah.
choose best.
There's no shortage of things to talk about, so.
So the breakdown, I think it's working well, because I'm doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the current planning just because I've done it for, you know, my entire 18 years as a planner.
Yeah.
And then I think we're pretty equally on the long range planning stuff. And then I have some projects, but because she's kind of taken on the grant specialization, you know, a lot of her balance is projects. And
Especially
so,
parks.
yeah, definitely parks.
Well, I seen you out on the wayfinding with the orange jacket showing Audra and the boys. Here's where. Yep. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I seen that.
Yep.
I seen that.
And I
Yeah.
have one go back. When are the extra signs going away?
That's a great question. I hope soon. It's really distracting to have 6 signs next to a beautiful new sign that does the same
Yeah,
thing.
somebody had written a little song on the internet. Signs everywhere, signs.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about the
Yeah. So I had heard that Public Works is forming the concrete this week to be poured next week if the weather holds out, and the veterans concrete. And then the basalt veneer can be applied. But I would assume when they pour the concrete, they'll pull the old signs. That's an assumption. I don't know. I hope it's soon though.
That's all. People are like, they're so beautiful. When are the ugly ones going to go away?
I think the same thing every time I drive down.
There you go. Thank you for that.
But I'll just say, it's insane. It's definitely insane. In my 18 years, I don't think I've dealt with this many big projects at once. There's a lot of interest and stuff going on in town. And if it wasn't for Jenny,
You'd have even less.
I'd probably have less hair and it'd be great.
Jacob, you ought to have Jenny learn how to smile when she finishes a project, though.
So this is your second time in Salem? This will be your second time?
Yeah, in front of the board.
It's
Yeah.
very cool. Yeah, so I mean, because you got the House side and the Senate side.
Oh, I wish it was that.
You're not going there?
We're just going to a Comfort Suites.
Okay.
It's
I
just
thought
like
you
a
were
conference
actually
room.
volunteered, like,
No.
Wayfinding or whatever committee you're.
No, that would be cool.
Okay.
No, it's so Parks and Rec just rents out a room in the Comfort Suites or wherever.
It's a board.
Yeah.
meeting, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Super, thanks.
You guys, thank you for all you do, and thank you for the report.
Sure.
Okay, Matt. Okay, Kathy. All right, John, you got some.
Oh, I got to do something. Mostly I wanted to at least a go back on the municipal broadband discussion we talked about briefly in the workshop. Dan Davis was our citizen that kind of brought that as a possibility to explore that. We engaged with this consultant to do an assessment, and in that interim, we also have had a meeting with Mr. Davis. He coordinated it in Portland with one of the people from Multnomah County's IT person, and then also Lit Technologies is a more on the construction side of it. They're out there in the world doing this open platform, net neutrality kind of projects all over the country, and so we met with them. And I might, to the extent Dan wants to come, invite him to talk briefly about our meeting if he desires to do that. But it seems encouraging that we have this information just coming back trying to schedule a meeting for that. It's going to be next week, and I've got our IT person, and Matt's going to sit in on it to talk about it, just taking shape and moving along, and it's just a little more detailed than we're working on it. So, but we'll be checking back in periodically. So, and then secondly, I wanted to talk about well, part of my role as a city administrator is I have to break it down into kind of maybe 4 bubbles, and one of them's staff to the council, one of them's chief of staff to the staff, one of them's the community person that's working interagency within the city, and then lastly this advocacy role towards cities and the state and legislative initiatives and things that are more have statewide significance, and St. Helens representing St. Helens to do its part in those types of things. The League of Oregon Cities is a good example of that. So there is currently a House Bill 2408, which is a bill that threatens to make all investments in over $20 million in an enterprise zone prevailing wage, just by fact that they are in the enterprise zone and they're over 20 million, they're going to be prevailing wage automatically. And that is a huge threat to our waterfront. And I've submitted a letter of testimony on that. They're going to have some hearings coming up next week. As if the BOLI public-private partnership component of that wasn't bad enough, this is another layer that's potentially threatening. And the league is vehemently opposing this, and hopefully they'll get the traction to do that. But it may make sense in places that are very urbanized and but prevailing wage in our tertiary market to Portland, it really, developers aren't taking those chances to come out and make those types of investments. They just can't afford it.
How often does that zone come up for revote for us? Because I know I questioned it, and you guys are all looking at me like I was crazy, but
I think every 10 years, and we just renewed it. So,
because I was questioning what benefit has it had to our community. It's been there for how long? 16 years or something like that?
I think Councilor Topaz kind of hit the nail on the head earlier in his talk about Oregon's economic development tools and how we really don't compete with our peers when we look at a national level. That Oregon's pretty limited, and enterprise zones, state investment program. They have some marketing through the prospector site, and it runs out pretty quick after that. I mean, then there's really not.
Oregon's pretty hostile.
Yeah.
Pretty difficult for a lot of companies.
So there's been some investments that it applies to. Whether or not it was a deciding factor for them to make that investment or not, it's hard to say. I would tend probably not, but especially when it's an existing business adding on. But making that decision, the deferral is just, it's meaningful. But
yeah.
Anyway.
And what's the bill number again?
2408.
Okay, good. Making sure I wrote it down right.
Yep. So I did submit a letter of testimony on that bill, and they're having hearings upcoming, and I can keep informed of that as well. I may go down to Salem to talk about it. So that's it.
Okay. All right. Any go backs for anybody? Yeah, come on up.
Frank Brandon. First, Jacob, there's nothing wrong with gray hair. Okay.
I wasn't insinuating it.
I took it personally. This is kind of going to be like the dog chasing its own tail, because I'm going to ask you to consider what you've just granted me by letting me sit here. You have the schedule of this meeting has a visitor comments at the beginning, and you talk about a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
And maybe how about you go back to the end and slide that in again, because I got questions, I got comments, and I'm not the only one. There are obviously, yes, we've had the chance, but you've brought up a number of topics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you had another slot down there at the bottom one more time, and I know you kind of always say, anybody got anything? Mm-hmm. And that's sort of the unofficial way of doing it. Maybe you should consider doing it an official way, so we don't have great guilt when we bring up a question. So I wasn't here when all of these polluting companies departed, but and I'm sure I'm not the first person to ask this question, but when they went away, did we just say, yeah, see ya? Or did we say to them, hey, you're responsible for this stuff? Did we just say goodbye to them, or
No,
did we get
because
a great price on something?
It's on city property, and it was a deal that was made years ago that the city and Boise at that time would share the responsibilities of the lagoon. So it was in a portion, the city, the city's responsibilities and Boise's as well.
And is Boise?
So they
Boise
are on
helping
the
that
hook
money?
for
They are.
25 years. They're on the hook.
All right, so
Yeah,
somebody's yelling at them.
right. We have
And
25 years to dig up any skeletons we want.
Okay.
So,
they're-
but it
they're
started like
responsible.
Armstrong was actually Kaiser, clear back way when that really actually polluted that area, and then it was the pole yard was Pope and Talbot.
Paula Talbot, yeah.
So some of them were on the hook, and some of them filed bankruptcy. Some did their Chapter 11 stuff. You know, I mean,
But-
yes,
But
DQ was
somebody in this city is actively yelling at some people saying, hey,
more at the state
help
level.
us clean this. Okay.
Yep.
But it's happening.
Because
It's not
their
it's not
private
just gone.
property. It's more of a state level
Okay.
issue,
All right.
right? Is that safe to say?
Well, and there's waters of the state too. There a lot of it's in the water.
Yes.
Right. I understand that. When you sit back there and you listen to this stuff and you don't know everything, that's one of the things that comes up that you want to ask at the end of the meeting. It's like, hey, how come nobody ever went back to them and hit them over the head and said, pay up,
Yeah.
clean up?
Some businesses just vanished.
But
You know,
that's
if they're
true.
gone, there's not much we can do.
Right, but I don't think that Boise Cascade, for one, is one
And-
of those businesses.
And Frank, we most certainly none of us up here know everything, and that's why we hire consultants and scientists, and we are going to learn as we go. For people to, in my opinion, to come in and state this is the way it's going and this is what you're doing, is false and not true. We are going to learn as we go, and we'll figure it out, won't we? Together, we have
so.
public, yeah.
That's why I ask the questions. I come here, I observe,
Yeah, you
kind of
you're
learn
quite a
some
bit.
things.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
So now the lagoon, the stuff in the lagoon, we are responsible for that because that's what we traded the property for.
and we knew that at the time.
Yes.
And this was a brilliant idea.
This was before me.
It was something that we have control over.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good, bad, whatever.
I mean,
Oh,
I didn't vote for it because I didn't want to pay the $3 million myself, but buying the mill was a good deal because we have control of what's going in there now.
So what would have happened?
I understand that, and I think it's a valid thing. It's just that
Right.
it's like we knew it going in.
So
You knew it.
yeah, Frank. Of course, I wasn't mayor at
Right.
the time, but so and I asked that question too because I was one of the things I was like, what? At least this way, if it was still owned by Boise, there would be nothing done. Not even talks of studies. Not even talks of studies. It would just be nothing. We just continue to run
There'd
the
be a
store.
lock over the
And
road
plus
out
it-
there, and that would be it.
Yeah.
So now that the city has it, at least there's something being done with it. So
I have another dumb question or audience
good
question,
questions.
whatever. This is from the earlier meeting, but the urban meeting.
urban
So-
renewal.
Klatskanai and Scappoose are bringing in businesses. They're doing a good job. They're getting things. How are they doing that? Are we looking at them? Are we saying to them, how'd you do that? You know, I mean, I used to work for a guy whose motto was, if you don't ask, you don't get. So they're doing something right. What is it? That's one point I wanted to make. Second point is St. Helens is part of the county.
County seat. County
We don't know whether Klaskanine's doing the right thing or not.
Okay.
That's to be determined.
Yeah. But, you know, the county and the port and, the train things, and they're not listening to
Anybody?
some people here from St. Helens or Scappoose. When you went and talked about it, they kind of just dismissed these things. Sometimes you don't always have to work hand in hand with people, you know? I'm sure they ask you for your cooperation on some things. Do you have to cooperate if they're not cooperating with you? Just something to think about. I don't know.
Yeah, so
These are
Scappoose-
observations.
So Scappoose, I will say that they have some help there. They have CSET. They also have the port working on some of their industrial property. They also have Senator Johnson, who has advocated for OMEC, who has, and she's been involved with the airport for years. And OMEC, the state has donated $30 million to that project of tax money.
So
Scappoose,
how do you get some of that money? How do you get some of?
I guess we wait our turn. I don't know.
Betsy
it seems
Johnson,
like we've
you know, I
been
mean,
here a
it's-
while. It seems like we've been here a while, and
your
and
turn.
we definitely sit in on some of these same meetings, and nobody ever says, "Hey, let's
It's
talk
your
about
turn."
your industrial property.
Well-
Hey, let's talk about your waterfront."
We need a state
Nobody-
senator living
nobody ever
in our
says that.
community as
Nobody ever
well.
says that.
Yeah.
Actually, nothing's happened in Scappoose yet. It will, and then it will also come here.
No, and to credit that they have a good city manager, you know, Mike Sykes, and you know, I mean, the staff is doing some things too. but-
Something is happening there because you
Well,
read
it's
about it in
closer
the
to
papers.
Portland.
Right.
It hasn't
closer
come
to
to
Portland, too.
full fruition yet, but
That's all
something's
basically Senator Johnson put that whole thing together.
Well, gee, have her move to St. Helens or something. Anyway, just questions, observations, but it really, I think you should have like a little, you know, go around here at the end, because I know I have walked out of here at times talking to a few other people saying, gee, I wonder if they ever thought of this, or how come they say this?
Hey, Kathy, can we put it on there, Barry?
Thank you.
Maybe just the last call? I thought it would be kind of cute. Last call on the agenda? And then adjourn? No? Because I really like to start out with the public comment in the beginning, just because it sometimes really allows people to know that they can show right up here at 7 and be heard and not have to sit through. Sometimes our deliberations go through a long, drawn-out process, and sometimes they'll storm out of here and say, F that, you know, excuse my language, but. So I will continue to try to address people, and feel free anytime, Frank. Yep. Dan, you got anything you want to share?
No, I was here. I was going to ask John what's going on with the municipal. We haven't talked to him yet.
Yep. Okay, so nobody else needs to go back. All right. Appreciate you your input there, Frank. We're adjourned.
He's the guy that
Yeah.
came and talked about the municipal broadband
Oh, I didn't know.
initially.
I don't think I was here.